everybody, welcome back to Brailsford's Rides. I'm Matt. If you're new to the channel, please click that like button down below. Don't forget to subscribe. And today we have an exciting episode. We're going to discuss, for the money in the used car market, should you buy a new S550 Mustang or a Boss 302? They're both comparable in price in the $30,000 range, so let's get into it. All right guys, so first off, I want to apologize for all the background noise. I'm on a busy highway here, and I want to first thank the people here at Buick GMC for allowing me to take out their 2017 Ford Mustang GT and do this video. So first thing we're going to get into is we're going to talk about the appearance and the changes in the appearance. So when you're looking at the S197 platform, right, you can see that it has all the retro stylings of the original S197 back in 2005. They kept a lot of the aspects of the 60s Mustangs, and they just kind of amplified it to make it look more muscular, more menacing. And especially on this Boss 302, where you have the offset wheels, the wider tires in the back, and the Brembos up front, it definitely gives it that menacing appearance, coupled with that front splitter. You can see that, you can definitely see the design cues on both cars of the long hoods with the fastback kind of appearance here on both cars, sweeping into a shortened trunk. All right, but the difference between the S197 and S550 is the S550 is 40 millimeters wider at the back end there, so it gives it that protruding rear tire, which makes it definitely look like it's stance better. Probably is also necessary for the independent rear suspension, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. So Ford rocked the S197 platform for 10 years, 2005 to 2014. And then when it made the jump to the S550 in 2015, it was a vast monster redesign. It changed a lot of things on the car, gave it a lot of the actual aspects of the Boss, which we're going to get into here in a second and talk about the motor. And they just made it an overall smoother driving car, with especially coupled with that independent rear suspension, which, like I said, we're going to talk about that. They did keep a lot of the original aspects that are truly Mustang, you know, focal points. You got these fancy tri-bar taillights, which are actually, you know, really, the way they're set in here is fantastic. I love the way they look. And then you got my my candy cane taillights over here, which I'm not a fan of, but in 2013 they completely redesigned these, and you guys will see that in an upcoming episode where I actually put a set of 2013s here on my Boss 302. This is going to be a great comparison of kind of, it's not quite apples to apples because there's multiple versions of the Boss 302. You know, you got the Laguna Seca, which is super rare. You got the ones with the Recaro seats on the inside, which I don't have. I have a base model 302. The Recaro seats are also coupled with that torsion rear diff. And then you have the GT Premiums and the GTs here for the S550s. The Premiums will have a leather interior. They've got side marker turn signals along with the projector lights on the floor. This appears to be a base model, so it's base model versus base model should be a pretty fair comparison here. But let's go ahead and talk about the motor some. As you guys can see here, both motors are not in their stock appearance form. Mine's a stock tune. This one is coupled with a Roush intake. I used to have a Roush intake on my Boss 302. It ran a stock tune, so I'm kind of going to assume this is still a stock tune as well, and that this is just kind of more free breathing. That's kind of what the Roush intake was known for on the S197s at least. So let's talk about the differences in the motor. So the Boss 302 came from the factory making 444 horsepower at 7,500 RPM. 7,500 RPM is also the red line. It's a very unique power curve. There's not a lot of motors that make peak power at max RPM. All Mustangs traditionally make it lower than that. We'll talk about the S550 here in a second. Peak Peak torque plugs in right around 380 horsepower. The GTs of the time were 390. They sacrificed 10 foot-pounds of torque to bump that horsepower number up from 412 at the time up to 444. When you buy a Boss 302, you get a lot of goodies on that motor, right? You get the forged crank, the forged connecting rods, the CNC ported heads, you get forged pistons, which all helps that motor take a lot of abuse. These motors can be tuned to hold well, you know, right up to about 900 horsepower before they start braking. Assuming you've cut, you go ahead and change out the, I'm sorry, not tuned, but, you know, put a supercharger on it and tuned. Assuming you go ahead and change out the oil pump gears. Those oil pump gears, you take care of those, these motors can handle a lot. 800 horsepower can be attained no problem, and it will take it without blinking. All right. Now here we have the S550. The S550 from the factory makes about 435 horsepower at 6,500 RPM. That's 1,000 RPM less than the Boss 302, but it makes 400 foot-pounds of torque, which is 20 more foot-pounds of torque. And we'll talk about how it does that here. It took a lot of the features of the Boss 302. The connecting rods, it has the forged connecting rods from the Boss 302, but rather than CNC porting the heads, which is really expensive, what they did was they just redesigned the cylinder heads to help it breathe a little better, kind of mimic the Boss a bit. The pistons are not forged in this car. They're hyper-eutectic, which means that it's a aluminum silicon composite. So these motors, you can build them to big power. If you change out the pistons to forged pistons, it can be just up. The numbers will be up there just with the Boss 302, but with these hyper-eutectic, I really wouldn't feel comfortable going above 700. I know a couple friends of mine who've pushed the envelope above 700, and a couple of them actually have blown out their pistons. But these motors can take a lot of abuse, take a lot of power, and if they're built right. A couple of the other features that this car has is they increased the size of the valves. They revised the intake ports for the lumpier camshafts that these have. So the exhaust cams on the S550 here will produce 13 millimeters of lift, whereas the intake cams will also produce 13 millimeters lift, which is actually more than the 12 millimeters that's on the Boss 302. You know, so a couple of these minor changes are where you see the differences in the numbers, where the foot-pounds of torque being 20 higher. There's minor changes. You know, it's got redesigned cylinder heads, all that kind of stuff. That's basically helping this car put out more torque. The one big difference here is with that independent rear suspension that this has, this car weighs more, and at the wider body, it weighs more. This car weighs in right about 3,700 pounds, and this car is about 3,480. So, you know, when you buy a Boss 302, you're getting more horsepower per pound, but for this one, you're getting a more refined experience with that independent rear suspension. This is like the last of the solid rear axle cars. So if you're wanting a more raw feel, this is what you're going to go for, but we'll talk about that when we go for our little test drive here in a second. Alright guys, so next thing we're going to talk about here is the Boss 302. Boss 302, I've had this car since 2017. The first model came out in 2012, next model came out in 2013. They made a few upgrades between the 2012 model and the 2013 model. A lot of the creature comforts, so the 2013 model has a bunch of track apps and other technical features that I can't speak to because I don't have one in front of me to talk about. Okay, so it has a lot of the digital display options up on the dash. The Boss 302 is a very basic car, at least the 2012s are. Not a lot of technical features in here. You know, you get your standard stereo. They took out the door speaker down, the large door speaker slash woofer that was on the floor plates of the kick plates of the original S197s. They also got rid of a lot of the other, you know, you don't have any technical features up here. Like this is like 2001 technology that you've got. You know, I can see my miles per gallon, timer, trip, miles to empty. All right, and then you go to setup, you can see your oil life. You can set standard to standard, or sorry, set steering to standard, sport, or comfort. I leave it at standard, it's kind of best of both worlds. You can change your units, you can change the timing for the lights, auto lock on or off, auto unlock on or off, language. That's pretty much it. It's very basic, guys. You have stereo, don't even have door speakers in it. You have a nice little carbon, or you know, brush dash kind of look here with a custom Boss 302 right there. The seats, custom Boss 302 stitched. Even the base models, you have the Alcantara inserts. So this was like the real first upgrade for the seating, the base seats to be upgraded in these cars. As we'll see in the S550, they hug you very well compared to previous models of Mustang. The steering wheel in here is Alcantara wrapped, and you still have the same MT82 as in the S550. Well, this had it first. Man, is she angry. One thing that this car has is the most raw driving experience I've ever had. That solid rear axle, man, when you launch, you feel so planted in this car, but you can still feel everything. It's kind of amazing. Comparing it to my old S197, a 2005, it leaps and bounds ahead. It just feels like you're on the ground, and you put the pedal down and you go. It just hooks and books. This Mustang was also the first Mustang with launch control, but the set procedure is pretty frustrating. You got to hold it on the, you can't just set it on the dash and go like click to an option and hit launch control, turn on, put a set point. You got to hold a multitude of buttons on your speed control, adjust it that way. And I, for love of me, can't figure out how to disengage it. So my speed control, my launch control is forever set until I can figure that out. It's set at 3,500 right now. Last time I went drag racing, so it is what it is. But you know, it's a pretty cool feature to have. I've only used it once or twice, and after that, I kind of just stopped using it. I like to just kind of foot brake it if I can. So probably next time I go racing, I'm just gonna jack up my launch control set point and just to like 5,000 and just foot brake it at like 4. So hopping in the S550, right off the get-go, I notice a difference. The S197, the second version of it, starting in 2011, or sorry, 2010 is actually when the interior started, was a major upgrade from the 05 to 09 models, but since then it is definitely dated. This is a base model kind of interior here for these Mustangs, and as you can see, they made a lot of changes. You know, we got the same brushed, kind of metal look that we have in the Boss 302, and you got, I don't know if it's like rubber dash, nice emblem there since since 1964. This is definitely the base model, but you can get a nice tech package in here that comes with all the goodies, navigation, you know, Apple CarPlay. This should have the sync system, so it should be able to sync up to your phone. It's just not the most high-tech sync system. Let's go and start it real quick. Man, she sounds good with that Roush exhaust. So let's look at the goodies. Fuel economy, trips, main menu, you got track apps, which is I don't have. You got the accelerometer, acceleration timer, brake performance, and line lock. So you can set line lock, do a nice burnout before you go drag racing. Launch control is, like I said, you can set launch control here on the dash, whereas on the Boss 302, I got to play with my little, you know, cruise control set buttons to get it set, and actually I don't even know how to turn it off. This car's got 22,700 miles. So if you're interested in this car, guys, come to Moore Buick GMC. You got it here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Let's see what else we got on here. You got driver assist features, rear parking aid, hill start assist, auto engine off. So hill start assist, I never had that when I was a kid, so that's a pretty neat little feature, I think. All right, gauge modes. Let's see, air fuel ratio, cylinder head temp. That's awesome. I gotta plug in my tuner to see that. Air inlet temperature, oil temp low, voltage is good, and distance to empty. So we don't have that long. You can see your tire pressure. So all these technical features that I just don't have, I just think that's awesome that you can do that on here. All right, guys, so this actually isn't the first S550 I've driven, but it's probably the first, and it is the first naturally aspirated S550 with a stock tune. The other one I drove was my buddy Barry's 2015 GT, making 900 rear wheel horsepower. So not quite comparable, but this is definitely more comparable to the Boss. I'm excited to get out here, and I just love the feel of these seats, man. These base model seats, they hug you really well. I'm not gonna lie. These are actually really good. I have sat in a premium model before, sat in it, never driven it. They hug you even tighter, probably for the track use. But I'm a bigger guy, so these wider seats are actually kind of perfect for me. Love the leather wrapped steering wheel. That's a great feel, but I am obviously partial to my Alcantara in the Boss, but it can be frustrating. If you're daily driving this thing, man, you can clean these leather steering wheels pretty easily. That Alcantara, it's an evolution. You got to use a wet cloth and some warm water, continue to clean and clean it, or you dab it and you rinse it off, dab it some more. It's an evolution, man. But we're gonna get this thing out here and we're gonna take it, we're gonna see how it handles, and you kind of see what that rear independent suspension's all about. This transmission is gonna get some use, take some getting used to. I've got the MGW short throw shifter. This is definitely a stock shifter. That's the next thing I want to talk about. The MT82 in the S550, they did not get away from it. So the Boss 302, the S550 have the MT82. I do believe they made some minor refinements in the second Coyotes with the S550s. It should be a little better, but I do believe you still get the high RPM lockout. High RPM lockout in the Boss 302s was an issue for a lot of people, where they just basically couldn't shift it into gear. The car would physically not allow them to. It could be a clutch issue, it could be a shifter bracket issue. Mine was fixed when I installed a stainless clutch line, and the previous owner put in a MGW race spec shifter, and that knocked it out. No more issues ever again, and it's just phenomenal. This Roush exhaust sounds amazing. It's so weird because I feel like I'm shifting a truck, because it's like definitely longer than my exhaust. Wow. Wow. It's a different feel. It does not feel the same. Let's do this again. Let's wait till we're over this bridge. Yeah, the launch kind of feels really subdued. Maybe it's a traction control holding it back. The Boss 302 has a lot of the features that are turned off when you throw the track key in. A lot of that drivability just takes pretty much all those parameters away. So you go into full-on race car mode. It doesn't lose that. It keeps that refined driving feeling, kind of like you're almost driving a European car. Now we're going to test how this thing does some windy roads. Oh, wow. It definitely feels subdued and planted. It's pretty nice, man. I'm not even gonna lie. This thing's got the 0 to 60. Let's see what happens. Ready? 5.4. Hard to, that's not bad. It should be in the 4s, but it's a cold day out. But 0 to 60 is all I'm willing to do, because this is a test drive car. But that's a pretty cool feature, guys. You can get 1/4 mile times too, and 1/8 mile times. That's pretty awesome. I wish the Boss had that. I'm pretty sure the 13 Bosses have that, but I do not. So you know, this car is an all-round fun car. It's a driver. It's with an independent rear suspension. It just carves these turns, man. Just absolutely just carves them. Super smooth. You definitely feel like you're secure. I've definitely taken a few turns on my Boss where even though it was designed for it at Laguna Seca against the M3, you can tell that if I step on it a little more, I'm gonna break free. This one just feels like it's gonna keep you secure, and that's a really reassuring feeling, especially if this is something you were gonna drive like every day and you wanted it to be that fun sports car for your everyday driver. But I mean, that's just what it is though, guys. Technology advances, so you gotta decide what you want to pay for, right? You're paying for a little more refinement. It's still a GT, but it's GT with more refinement, better technology. Whereas the Boss, you're getting the pedigree. You're getting the pedigree of the 1969, 1970 Trans Am series cars. That's in those cars. It was designed, there's a motor built specifically for that car. Such a limited production run that it's, you know, that I find it that's what I would want to keep. However, you know, if it's something that you guys are just looking for an all-round driver, that maybe this is the route you want to go. It has a lot of the creature comforts that you might want, and you're sacrificing a little bit of power. You do have a lot of the goodies under the hood, which the Boss came with. You're just missing a few final pieces that would turn this into a Boss motor, but that's easily doable. I mean, not easily doable. There's work required. You'd have to change some internals, which is a big deal, but you know what, maybe you're a builder and you want to do that. These things can be built for big power and they can go crazy fast. They're super nice cars, super fun. I love the analog gauges here, the vacuum pressure gauge. I think that's awesome, especially the oil pressure gauge. You know, it's fantastic, guys. They did a great job designing the interiors of these cars. And I'm not trying to sound like a fanboy. I've been stuck in 2001 technology in the Boss for so long that this is like the first time I've kind of gotten my hands on a newer Mustang and I've been able to drive one. So yeah, this is like new to me. This is like when the 2015 came out. If I had gone out to test drive one, this is what I would be feeling, because I haven't really driven one. So that's why I'm reacting the way I am. Some of you guys will be like, oh, that's old technology, you know, we're way past that, but it's new to me, so that's why I'm kind of explaining it in such a way, guys. And what I want to make sure you guys get out of this is a feel for the drivability of this car. I'm on the back roads, which is my thought. I love driving back roads, guys. I love driving back roads. I love actually experiencing the car rather than a highway where you have to, you know, you just drive straight. I love the turns, and you know, I'm kind of getting a feel for it. The suspension is definitely more refined in this. You know, it's absorbing the dips and bumps a little better. But the Boss has that adjustable suspension where I can set it for track use or comfort at all 4 points. You know, you take a flathead screwdriver, you just adjust the strut, and then you're good to go. This is independent rear suspension, and it shows. You feel planted to the road. You know, you don't feel the bumps as much. That Roush exhaust sounds so phenomenal on this. The bigger exhaust cam definitely changed the note of this exhaust a good amount, and it's definitely deeper, throatier, and I love the sound of the S550 exhaust. The Coyote in general is a loud motor, but the S550, man, I think it took it to another level over the S197s. And I'm saying that, and I am an S197 fanboy. I love the way the S197s look, sound, all the above, but you know, I've got to be truthful here. All right, well, that's gonna wrap it up for the S550 test drive, guys, and for the video. So you got to decide what you want. You know, for the money, you got to decide if you want the refinement. You got more power with the refinement, but you don't. But what you got to understand is when you buy the Gen 2 Coyote, you're not buying the Boss 302 motor. You're getting a lot of the features of the Boss 302 motor, but not all of them. So when you buy one of these and you think you have a Boss 302 motor, even if you put the Boss 302 intake on it, you still don't have a Boss 302 motor. The Boss 302 is a limited run car with a motor built specifically for it, and it will forever be, you know, a staple in the Ford lineup. One of the best cars they've ever built. But if you're looking for something that's just a refined, nice driving car that can go fast, it can do it all. It can be a daily driver, it can go to the drag strip and go to the racetrack. You know, this, or this is it, man. The independent rear suspension, when you carve those corners, it really does dig in there. When you get the track pack set up with the Brembo brake packs, those are 6-piston brakes, and the 9-inch tires in the front, 9.5 in the back. That's exactly the same as the Boss, and you're getting the independent rear suspension. It's kind of hard to compete with that on a road course. So there's a lot of things you can talk about here, guys. There's so many different models of GT, a couple different models of Boss. I just hit a few of the big things that I wanted to talk about. Let me know what you guys think down below. If you think, you know, you should go for an S550 GT and build one of these, or go for a Boss 302. Maybe you want all that new fancy features, all the technology that comes with these over that, or maybe you want the collector value. You want to, you know, have something that's stands out, it's unique. You don't see a lot of them. All right. But you just got to understand that you're not going to get the refinement. You're not going to get the drivability all the time. It's just not there. That's not what that is. That is a race car motor that you can a race car that you can drive on the street. That's what that car is. And yeah, it might be 10 years old, but it still retains that raw feeling on the road. And it's in my opinion, it's really hard to beat. That car will forever be in my stable. I hope to one day have an S550 in addition to it, but you know, that's going to have to be in addition to. I will not trade that car in for this. But if you are looking for an S550 and you're in the Jacksonville area, this 2017 50 is here at Moore Buick GMC, and they'd be happy to sell it to you. So come out, give it a test drive, guys, and I hope, you know, I hope this goes to a new happy owner. That Roush exhaust is amazing. We have to rev it. I don't care. Hopefully the manager doesn't come out and yell at me, but we're gonna rev this thing real quick. Yeah, so the Boss 302 for the S197 platform is definitely the most planted. You know, independent rear suspension, great. It's great for turns. As far as, you know, the best handling, solid rear axle, you can't beat the Boss 302. It was leaps and bounds ahead of the other cars in the S197 category, and it's a monster. It was designed, when they designed the Boss 302, they were designing it not to compete against the Camaro SS. Ford knew they could beat the Camaro SS. The GT they figured beat the Camaro SS. Boss 302 was designed to compete at Laguna Seca with a BMW M3. They wanted to give it the ability to drive like the European counterparts that they were known for their trackability. So they compared it to an M3, and which it beat it handily. If you're a Boss owner, you'll get a DVD on the making of the Boss 302, and it actually talks about the specifics of this, and it's very fascinating. Now, one of the big hang-ups that a lot of people get when they buy a GT, some people will buy a GT and they will put a Boss 302 intake manifold on the car, and they'll go about their business thinking that they've made a Boss 302 engine. They think it's an intake and a tune, and it's so much more than that. As we discussed earlier, it's, you know, all the forged internals, and not to mention the track key. We didn't even discuss that. When you have the track key, it changes 200 parameters plus parameters in the motor. You get engine braking, you get more low-end torque, more fuel's thrown at the motor, and then not to mention my favorite part, you get the, hold on, woo! You get that, but no, you get the Lopey idle. It's just, it sounds incredible. It takes it from sedate to beast mode, and it is a beast, guys. It is a beast. This is such a raw car. I've had this car for 5 years, it still puts a smile on my face every time I drive it. Like every time, guys. Hard to beat. But one thing I think I'm definitely going to do in the future is one of my upcoming vids, guys, I'm going to see if I'm going to do some research, and we'll see if we can discuss the more detail the specifics and the differences between the Boss 302 motor and the Gen 2, maybe even the Gen 3 motor, because I know they took some of the features, they took several features from the Boss 302 in order to build those motors to give them more power, make them more reliable and cleaner in general, cleaner running in general. So we'll do that video coming up in the future. Let me know, comment down below if you guys would be interested in seeing that. All right, guys, I realized I didn't film an outro for this video, so if the choice is up to you, what would you pick? Would you go ahead and get a Boss 302? Go with the classic pedigree rare car, or would you go for the creature comforts and the power in a S550? Let me know down below what you guys would pick, and let me know what you think of this video. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Barrels for Drives. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and take care.